Have you ever stood in front of the mirror and quietly wondered, is this really my life? Not the version your parents envisioned, not the one society applauds, but the life your heart longs to live, the one that brings real peace, even if no one else understands it. That simple question, though easy to ignore, is at the core of Buddhist wisdom, because the truth is, most people spend their lives chasing illusions. They run after status, approval, and material comfort, all while their true self, quiet, sacred, and unseen, dries up like an unwitnessed flower. We become so skilled at wearing masks that we forget what our real face even looks like. And then each morning, the world meets us with demands, deadlines to meet, roles to perform, standards to uphold. The voice of the world is loud. It says you must be more polished, more productive, more likable. But beneath all of that noise, there is another voice. Fainter, slower, wiser, and the Buddha knew it well. He called the external pursuit samsara, the endless cycle of striving, wanting, and never quite arriving. It's the spiritual hamster wheel we all know too well, running faster and faster, chasing peace through productivity, joy through validation, purpose through busyness, and still, somehow, feeling empty. That subtle ache in your chest, that nagging sense that something's not right, even if everything looks fine, that isn't random anxiety. In Buddhist teaching, that's dukkha, the discomfort that surfaces when we live disconnected from our true nature. It's your heart tapping gently, saying, "This isn't it." Not to punish you, but to awaken you, because beneath all the layers of expectation and identity, there is a spring of clear, pure truth. The Buddha compared it to water hidden beneath layers of dirt, still flowing, still alive, just buried. But most people never dig deep enough. They settle for the surface, drinking from muddy puddles of temporary pleasure, another purchase, another compliment, another goal achieved, but none of it nourishes. None of it satisfies, because what you're really thirsty for isn't more. It's real. Real peace. Real meaning. Real connection to your own spirit. So the next time you stand before the mirror, pause. Look deeper than your reflection. Ask the question again, but this time, listen for the quiet voice underneath, the one that knows who you are without needing permission, because that voice, that still, knowing presence is your way out of samsara and your way back to yourself. Why do we so often ignore the timeless wisdom that could set us free? Because truth, in its rawest form, can be terrifying. To truly face ourselves is to peel back the layers of distraction and illusion and stand before our own reflection, flawed, vulnerable, unfinished. It means acknowledging the mistakes we've made, the dreams we've abandoned, and the unsettling possibility that we've spent years chasing goals that were never really ours to begin with. The Buddha named this resistance avidya, a fundamental ignorance, a blindness we cultivate to avoid seeing what lies beneath the surface. It's easier to stay busy, to drown in noise, to fill our calendars and screens, than it is to sit in silence and listen to the truth echoing within us. But the first step toward liberation doesn't begin with movement. It begins with stillness, and not the passive kind, but the brave, deliberate kind. When we meditate, we're not just trying to quiet the mind, we're learning to tune in to a voice that has always been there, waiting patiently beneath the chaos. That voice is our guide home. But make no mistake, this inward path is not for the faint of heart. It demands a kind of courage that goes far beyond the physical. The Buddha called it vira, spiritual energy, the fierce willingness to face ourselves without turning away. It requires us to question the very foundation of what we've been taught to believe, what success looks like, what happiness requires, what it means to live a good life. Sometimes it means letting people down, walking away from expectations that were never aligned with our truth. It means sitting in the quiet discomfort of our fears, our grief, our unspoken doubts, without numbing them, without escaping into busyness. Yet here's the quiet miracle the Buddha uncovered. When we finally stop running and turn toward ourselves with compassion instead of judgment, we discover that everything we've been seeking was never outside of us. It was always here, waiting to be remembered. The path forward isn't about rejecting the world, but about seeing it with new eyes, clear eyes. It's learning how to carry our responsibilities without letting them carry away our souls. It's about pausing deeply consciously when that inner voice rises, even if what it says defies everything we've been conditioned to want, because that voice, however quiet, speaks the language of freedom. The Buddha didn't teach escape from life, but awakening within it. Every mindful breath, every honest moment before the mirror, every time you choose authenticity over approval, these are the steps that lead from suffering to freedom. So tomorrow morning, when you see your reflection, look deeper beneath the roles you play and the masks you wear. Who is really there? And more importantly, what would it feel like to finally let that person live? Take a deep breath and ask yourself, how many choices have I made lately from a place of real truth, and how many were shaped by fear? Fear of letting people down, fear of standing out, fear of the unknown, fear of leaving behind what feels safe. The Buddha taught that fear is one of the greatest obstacles to awakening. It keeps us trapped in cycles of suffering, repeating old patterns, while our authentic selves remain buried beneath layers of conditioning. Every time we choose fear over truth, we move further from our own inner light. Like a tree straining toward sunlight, yet tied down by ropes we may not understand, we may not realize why we feel so strained, so exhausted, until we realize we've been fighting against our own nature. This isn't about selfishness. The Buddha's middle way teaches us that true wisdom lies neither in self-indulgence nor in self-denial, but in balance. To give genuinely to others, we must first be rooted in our own wholeness. Imagine a lamp trying to brighten a room while its own flame flickers weakly. How can it illuminate anything? In the same way, we can't offer love, kindness, or presence to the world if we're running on emptiness. The Dhammapada says, first establish yourself in what is right, then teach others. This is the heart of true compassion. You cannot pour from an empty cup when you begin choosing yourself, not from ego, but from deep self-honesty. A quiet miracle unfolds. The Buddha called this the law of karma, not punishment and reward, but the natural truth that like attracts like, live from your core, and life responds in kind. People who resonate with your truth will appear. Situations that nurture your growth will arise. What no longer belongs to you will fall away, not as loss, but as the universe making space for what aligns with your awakened path. But first, you must face what you've been avoiding, the shadows within. In Buddhism, these shadows are called klashas, the mental defilements of greed, hatred, and delusion that cloud our true nature. We spend lifetimes running from them, masking them, pretending they don't exist. Yet the Buddha's radical teaching was this: nothing is to be clung to as I or mine. Even our darkest parts are not enemies to destroy, but illusions to see through. When you stop resisting your shadows, your anger, your insecurities, your past mistakes, something extraordinary happens. They lose their power over you. Like a nightmare recognized as just a dream, their grip loosens. This is the alchemy of awareness. What was once heavy becomes light. This transformation doesn't ask for perfection, it asks for presence. Sitting in meditation, you might notice shame arising. I'm not good enough. Instead of pushing it away, you simply breathe and label it. This is fear. You watch as it trembles and dissolves, like a wave returning to the ocean. Over time, you begin to recognize all emotions as passing weather in the vast sky of your awareness. This is the essence of vipassana, clear seeing. The more you practice, the more you realize you are not your shadows, you are the space that holds them. And from this space, clarity dawns. Decisions become simpler, not because life gets easier, but because you're no longer torn between truth and fear. You understand the Buddha's teaching that all conditioned things are impermanent. Even your struggles with this wisdom, you navigate challenges not as catastrophes but as passing storms. Purpose emerges naturally, not as some grand destiny to achieve, but as the next right step taken with full attention and peace. It becomes your inner home, unshaken by the world's chaos, like the depths of the ocean undisturbed by surface waves. So tonight, before sleep, ask yourself, where have I been untrue today? Not to judge, but to awaken. Each moment of honesty is a seed planted in the fertile soil of awareness. Water it with patience, and one day, maybe when you least expect it, you'll find yourself blooming effortlessly into the life that was always meant to be yours. The moment comes when you realize no is a complete sentence, not a rejection of others, but an affirmation of yourself. No explanations needed, no apologies required. In Buddhist terms, this is right speech meeting right intention, the wisdom to know what serves your path, and the compassion to decline what doesn't, without resentment or guilt. The Buddha taught that clinging to what drains us, whether toxic relationships, soul-crushing work, or outdated versions of ourselves, is like gripping a burning coal and wondering why we're in pain. Letting go isn't loss. It's the first breath after being underwater too long. You might sit quietly now and whisper, "But how?" The answer hums in your bones like an ancient mantra. Listen not with your thinking mind, but with your body's quiet knowing, that knot in your stomach when you say yes, but mean no. The exhaustion after pretending to be someone you're not. These aren't random discomforts, they're dukkha knocking at your door, the suffering that arises when we betray ourselves. The Tibetan teacher Padmasambhava said, "If you want to know your past life, look at your present condition. If you want to know your future life, look at your present actions." Every time you ignore these whispers, you plant seeds for more suffering. Every time you honor them, you water the roots of liberation. Consider the job that pays well but hollows you out, or the relationship running on fumes of habit. The Buddha called this samsaric entanglement, the web of attachments we mistake for safety. We stay because the devil we know feels easier than the unknown, even as our spirit withers. But here's the paradox. The Dharma reveals what feels like safe stagnation is actually slow decay, while the terrifying leap toward authenticity is where life begins. Like a snake shedding its skin, we must release to grow. There's grief in this shedding, yes. As Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh taught, no mud, no lotus. The decay of what no longer fits becomes compost for what's waiting to bloom. You'll know it's time to choose yourself when the weight of staying begins to crush you more than the fear of leaving ever could. That quiet dream you keep shelving, the truth you've been swallowing for the sake of peace. These aren't fleeting impulses, they are sacred signals. Your Buddha nature whispering you back home to yourself. In the Pali Canon, the Buddha offered a profound directive: be islands unto yourselves, refuges unto yourselves. This isn't a call for isolation, it's a call for inner anchoring, because only from a place of deep self-rootedness can real, nourishing connection grow. The moment you stop abandoning your truth to maintain the comfort of others, a quiet miracle unfolds. Those who were only drawn to your performance begin to fall away, and those who resonate with your essence begin to appear. The universe, ever attuned to integrity, moves to support those who dare to live aligned. So tonight, light a candle, sit in silence, and ask yourself the questions that have been waiting in the corners of your soul. What am I holding on to that's already gone? Where am I shrinking to make others feel safe? Don't rush to fix. Don't search for tidy answers. Just let the truth rise, soft, subtle, like moonlight on still water. The first step isn't some grand, cinematic exit. It's the simple, sacred act of naming what's real. Maybe today, that means setting one boundary that honors your well-being. Maybe it means deleting an app that feeds insecurity. The revolution doesn't come in noise and spectacle. It begins in quiet, intimate moments of loyalty to your own soul. And when the doubt creeps in, who am I to want more? Remember the Buddha's own awakening. He didn't find truth in opulence or deprivation, but by walking the middle path, the path of radical presence and honesty. Your yearning for authenticity is not indulgent, it's holy. As the Tibetan Book of the Dead reminds us, this life is impermanent, a dream unfolding in a single breath. The real tragedy isn't falling short of others' expectations, it's forgetting you were never born to meet them. The invitation to choose yourself is not in some far-off future or perfectly planned moment. It's here, in this very breath. The lotus doesn't wait for the mud to disappear before it rises. It roots into the murk and blooms anyway. So ask yourself, honestly, bravely, what will you do with this one wild and precious life? Because the instant you truly choose yourself, not perform it, not second-guess it, but deeply choose, your entire life begins to exhale. You'll feel it, a shift, a softening, a return. And no, it's not selfish. It is perhaps the most sacred act of self-preservation you'll ever know. The Buddha taught that suffering is born of craving and clinging, craving approval, clinging to safety, performing roles scripted by someone else's expectations. But when you begin to release the version of you were taught to be, something profound happens. Grace arrives. The people meant for your truth draw near. Those who needed your smallness fall away. This is not loss, it's realignment. The universe, always listening, is simply rearranging itself to match your awakening. You'll feel it first in your body, long before your mind has words for it. That tightening in your chest when you say yes but mean no. The dull, quiet ache of living in a life that no longer fits. These aren't just passing discomforts, they are the whispers of dukkha, the deep, subtle suffering that arises when we resist our own nature. The body always knows, it holds the truth long after we've tried to bury it beneath obligations, roles, and fear. The great Tibetan yogi Milarepa never sang lullabies of self-denial. He howled the raw songs of aliveness, calling us not to shrink, but to burn bright with fierce, unapologetic presence. And in the stillness of solitude he discovered what many of us miss in our endless noise. Discomfort isn't proof that you're failing. It's evidence that you're shedding the false skins of a life lived on autopilot. But this is where the path stops being poetic and starts asking for courage. To choose yourself is to stand in front of the mirrors you've been avoiding. It means revisiting those silent moments when you betrayed your own voice, when you swallowed your no to keep the peace, when you dimmed your light to fit someone else's expectations. In the Pali Canon, the Buddha called this avijja, a fundamental ignorance that tricks us into trading truth for fleeting comfort. And yet, even in the heart of that forgetfulness, a deeper wisdom remains. Tonight, if you place your hands over your heart and allow the noise to fall away, you may hear a question rise, soft but undeniable. What would I do if I loved myself unconditionally? Not someday when I'm perfect, but right now exactly as I am. And that is where the magic begins. Because the moment you choose alignment, the world begins to shift. Just like the moon moves oceans, an internal decision begins to reconfigure external reality, that draining job. Suddenly, opportunities emerge that resonate with your soul. That relationship built on pretense, it either transforms into something real or dissolves to make space for the love that requires no mask. This isn't a fantasy, it's the law of karma in motion. As the Dhammapada reminds us, all that we are arises with our thoughts. When you stop bending your truth to satisfy the world, life stops contorting you to fit what you've outgrown. But don't rush. This isn't about perfection. It's about presence. Be gentle with yourself. Unlearning lifetimes of self-abandonment takes time. Start with small, radical acts of honesty. Pause before giving your automatic yes. Notice the quiet flash of resentment. It often points to a place where you've betrayed yourself. Keep a journal of those moments when you ignored your intuition to keep others comfortable. And when you're ready, burn the page. Let the flame be an offering to the self you're reclaiming. This is sati, mindfulness, not just in meditation, but on the most intimate battlefield of all, your everyday choices. This is the sacred work. This is how we come home. And when guilt creeps in, who am I to put myself first? Remember, the Buddha didn't find enlightenment by following the crowd. He sat alone under the Bodhi tree, facing every shadow, until he realized the most radical truth. Nirvana isn't some distant heaven. It's the freedom of living from your undivided heart. Your liberation begins the instant you stop asking permission to exist fully. So tonight, as the world sleeps, stand before your mirror, not to fix or judge, but to meet the eyes of someone who's been waiting a lifetime to be chosen. Whisper, "No more abandoning you." Then watch, in days, weeks, months, how the universe conspires to honor that vow. The Tibetan monks say sand mandalas aren't destroyed. Their beauty is released back into the world. Likewise, every no to what drains you is a yes to the love that awaits. The choice was never between others and yourself. It was between illusion and the breathtaking truth that you were always worthy of coming home. The moment you begin choosing yourself, you'll feel the world push back, not because you're wrong, but because your light makes others question their own shadows. The Buddha called this Mara, the tempter, not some external demon, but the voice inside and sometimes in others that whispers, "Who do you think you are?" When you dare to stand in your truth, there will be days you falter, moments you slide back into old people-pleasing habits. This isn't failure. It's the path. In Zen, they say fall down 7 times, stand up 8, not with shame, but with the gentle persistence of a river carving stone. What you're really learning is the art of metta, loving kindness directed inward. When you catch yourself reverting to old patterns, don't scourge yourself with guilt. That's just another form of self-abandonment. Instead, pause, breathe. Place a hand over your heart, like the monks do during Tonglen meditation, absorbing the discomfort with compassion. The Tibetan teacher Dzigar Kung Trul reminds us, every moment of self-awareness is a moment of waking up. That flicker of recognition when you notice you've betrayed yourself, that's not weakness, it's wisdom stirring. The people who drift away were never your keepers. Yes, their absence may ache like a phantom limb, but Buddhism teaches that all attachment leads to suffering. This doesn't mean you stop loving, it means you stop clinging. Watch without flinching as relationships rearrange themselves. Some connections will deepen unexpectedly, like roots finding water in drought. Others will snap like dead branches, making space for new growth. The Dhammapada says it plainly, "You are the only master you need. Those who truly belong won't fear your authenticity. They'll recognize it as permission to embody their own." Here's the secret the Buddha knew. Your outer world is a mirror, not a prison. When you stop rejecting parts of yourself, life stops rejecting you. That coworker who suddenly respects your boundaries, the stranger who offers help exactly when needed. This isn't coincidence. It's praditya samutpada, the interdependent nature of reality responding to your inner shift. Like a stone cast into a pond, your self-acceptance sends ripples through the fabric of your existence. Even the obstacles change, where once they were brick walls, now they become gates. But stay vigilant. The mind loves its cages. You'll catch yourself yearning for the false safety of smaller living, like a caged bird nostalgic for its bars. In these moments, recall the Buddha's words, "What you think, you become." Each time you choose authenticity over approval, you're not just making a decision, you're sculpting your future self. The Thai forest tradition teaches that enlightenment isn't some distant peak. It's the accumulation of 1,000 daily no's to illusion and yes to truth. So when doubt comes, and it will, touch the earth as the Buddha did when Mara attacked. Feel the solid ground of your own experience, that job you walked away from, the relationship you outgrew. They weren't mistakes, they were the curriculum. Now look around. The light falls differently these days. Colors seem brighter. Conversations carry weight you never noticed. This is what happens when you stop filtering life through others' expectations. The world reveals its hidden music. The Japanese Zen poet Ryokan wrote, "If you want to find the meaning, stop chasing after so many things. By choosing yourself, you've done just that." And somewhere under the Bodhi tree of your own heart, a Buddha you didn't know existed begins to unfurl. The path to true transformation isn't instant. It grows slowly, like a seed planted in rich soil. In Buddhism, we understand that all things take time, and patience is one of the greatest virtues. The Buddha taught that progress on the spiritual path isn't always smooth. Some days you may feel strong and steady, like a mountain. Other days, old habits and fears might creep back in, making you feel like you've taken a step backward. But this isn't failure. It's part of the journey. Just as a river flows around obstacles, you too must learn to move through challenges with awareness and kindness toward yourself. The world often tells us that sacrificing everything for others is the highest good. But the Buddha taught a deeper truth. You cannot truly help others if you are broken inside. Imagine a lamp with no oil. It cannot give light no matter how much it wants to. In the same way, if you drain yourself completely, what you offer others is not real love. It's exhaustion wrapped in obligation. Sooner or later, the body and mind will speak, in fatigue, in resentment, or in a quiet feeling of emptiness. The Dharma, the Buddha's teachings, guides us toward a wiser way. Mindful, loving-kindness meditation begins with offering love to yourself first, because only then can you radiate it outward without limits. The Buddha did not praise martyrdom. He praised wisdom, and wisdom tells us that self-care is not selfish. It is the foundation of a compassionate life. So walk this path with patience. Some days will be easy. Some days will test you. But with each step, you are planting seeds of mindfulness, self-respect, and true generosity. And just as the lotus grows from muddy water, your highest self will rise, not in spite of the struggles, but because of them. Trust the process. The journey itself is the transformation. Close your eyes and think about the people in your life. Do they fill your heart with joy, like sunlight warming the earth? Or do they leave you feeling tired, like a tree whose roots have been slowly weakened? The Buddha taught that our relationships are like mirrors. They show us not just who others are, but who we are. The people we attract, the ones we keep close, even those who hurt us, all of them reflect our inner world. If we often feel disrespected, it may be because we haven't yet learned to fully respect ourselves. If we cling to those who bring chaos, it might mean a part of us still confuses love with suffering. In Buddhism, this is the teaching of karma, not as punishment but as the natural echo of our thoughts, actions, and deepest beliefs. The Dhammapada says, "We are what we think. All that we are arises with our thoughts." So when someone repeatedly crosses your boundaries, ask yourself gently, why do I allow this? It's not that they are evil, it's that somewhere inside, you haven't yet built the wisdom to say, this far and no further. Setting boundaries isn't about pushing people away, it's about honoring the sacredness of your own spirit. The Buddha himself walked away from those who sought to distract him from his path. He did so not with anger, but with the quiet strength of a man who knew his own worth, that heavy feeling you carry after certain conversations. The way your chest tightens, or your energy drains. That's not an accident. In the Buddhist tradition, we call this Vedana feeling tone, the subtle signal of whether something harms or heals us. Your body and heart are wiser than you think. They whisper truths your mind might ignore. When you dismiss these whispers, you trade your peace for the illusion of belonging. But the Buddha taught that true belonging begins within. No relationship built on self-betrayal can ever bring lasting happiness. Imagine your heart as a temple. Would you let anyone trample through it with muddy shoes? Of course not. Yet so many of us leave the doors wide open, allowing others to take what they please, our time, our energy, our joy, until nothing sacred remains. This isn't compassion, it's avidya, ignorance. The root of suffering, real compassion, starts with protecting your inner light. Just as you'd shield a candle from the wind, the Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh taught that to love without knowing how to love wounds the person we love. How can you offer kindness to others if your own well has run dry? This doesn't mean cutting people off in anger. Buddhism teaches right speech and right action to act with clarity, not cruelty. Some relationships may need space. Others may simply need new rules, like a riverbank that guides the water without stopping its flow. When you say no to what drains you, you're saying yes to the parts of you that still dream, still hope, still believe in peace. You're making room for true spiritual community, the kind of connections that help you grow, like trees in a forest, each standing tall but nourished by the same earth. There's a story about the Buddha and a grieving mother. She begged him to bring her dead child back to life. Instead of scolding her, he asked her to bring him a mustard seed from a home that had never known loss. As she went from house to house, she realized everyone carries sorrow. This is the heart of Buddhist wisdom. We don't avoid pain by people-pleasing. We heal by facing truth with courage. Your boundaries aren't walls. They're the hands that cup your own heart, saying, "You matter too." So walk softly, but walk with awareness. Tend to your relationships like a gardener, watering what blooms, pruning what withers, and knowing that even weeds were once seeds someone allowed to grow. Every time you choose yourself, you aren't being selfish. You're practicing the highest form of metta, loving kindness. And when you love yourself deeply, the whole world benefits. Because a healed person heals others, not by sacrifice, but by radiant example. There comes a moment on the path of self-awareness when you suddenly realize you can trust yourself. That quiet voice inside, the one you used to second-guess or drown out with others' opinions, begins speaking with surprising clarity. In Buddhist tradition, we call this prajna, the innate wisdom that exists within all beings, like a golden thread woven through your very being. As you practice choosing yourself day after day, something magical happens. This inner knowing grows stronger, like a flame that burns steadily even in the wind. The Buddha taught that every human being carries within them a natural wisdom, just as every acorn contains within it the blueprint of a mighty oak. This innate clarity, known as our Buddha nature, isn't something we earn or acquire, it's something we remember. And yet, for many of us, it feels elusive, faint, like a whisper drowned out by the noise of modern life. Why? Because our minds, like a still pond, become turbulent when we chase approval, bend ourselves to meet others' expectations, or live consumed by fear and comparison. The surface becomes so disturbed, so clouded, that we forget we were ever meant to see clearly. In Buddhist meditation, we're invited to let the water settle. This state of calm awareness is called samatha, a return to stillness. And in that stillness, something powerful happens. We begin to see ourselves, not as others see us, but as we truly are. Those quiet inner nudges, the gut feelings you can't rationalize, the sudden clarity that comes out of nowhere, the inner yes that floods your body with peace. This is your Buddha nature trying to cut through the static. It's your truest self speaking in a voice that doesn't shout, but never lies. In the Pali Canon, the Buddha describes this form of knowing as something beyond ordinary intellect. It's not based on logic or fear. It's direct, intuitive, and deeply trustworthy. There's a powerful story of a monk who repeatedly dreamt that he should travel to a certain village, The message made no logical sense. Yet he followed it. When he arrived, he was able to save a family from an ambush. This is what happens when we cultivate sati, mindfulness, not just as a technique, but as a way of listening. The more mindful we become, the more we're able to tune into life's subtle guidance system. Sometimes it arrives as a flutter in your gut. Other times, it's the goosebumps on your skin when something true is spoken, or that unmistakable sense of expansion in your chest when you're aligned with the right decision. Even if no one else understands it, these sensations are not random. They are the ancient language of your inner wisdom, the voice that existed before you could speak. But the great challenge is this: society rarely teaches us how to trust it. In fact, intuition often runs counter to conventional advice. The Buddha himself faced this tension. By worldly standards, he had everything: power, privilege, luxury, and yet his heart told him the truth. None of it would bring lasting peace. He left the palace not out of rebellion, but because his soul knew there was more. In the same way, your authentic path might not make sense to those around you. The career shift that others question. The relationship you walk away from, even though nothing appears broken. The creative pursuit that keeps calling you, even when it seems impractical. These moments, difficult, brave, and deeply personal, are where choosing yourself becomes a spiritual act. As Tibetan teacher Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche described it, this is the wisdom of insecurity, the sacred art of trusting the uncertain, groundless territory of your own truth. It's not always comfortable, but it is always alive. And when you dare to walk it, not only do you reclaim yourself, you open the door to a life that finally feels like home. As you begin to trust yourself, genuinely, consistently, a quiet miracle starts to unfold in your daily life. The Buddhist teaching of pratyasa or dependent origination, reminds us that everything is connected, nothing arises in isolation. That when your inner vibration shifts, even subtly, your outer reality responds. Suddenly, you overhear a stranger say the exact words your soul needed, a book falls into your lap, answering questions you hadn't yet dared to ask. These moments are not mere coincidences. They are the universe responding in kind, echoing your decision to live in alignment. The Zen masters call this the 10,000 things coming to your aid. Life, once resistant and chaotic, starts to flow with a strange, undeniable harmony. But let's be clear, this path doesn't eliminate hardship. Even the Buddha, on the verge of enlightenment, was visited by Mara, the personification of fear, temptation, and doubt. What changes isn't the presence of difficulty, but the way you meet it. No longer drowning in self-betrayal, you approach challenges with curiosity, not collapse. What is this here to teach me? Becomes your mantra. The tantric traditions call this alchemy, the sacred art of turning poison into medicine. That difficult coworker becomes your opportunity to practice compassion. That failed project reveals resilience you didn't know you had. Even heartbreak, when held in awareness, doesn't destroy you, it cleanses you, making room for something more authentic to emerge. There's a luminous teaching in the Lankavatara Sutra. The world is perception. When you repeatedly choose yourself, your truth, your boundaries, your wholeness, you begin to see through new eyes. Colors seem more vibrant. The air feels clearer. You notice the way sunlight plays on leaves, how a child's laughter cuts through noise like a bell. Why? Because the fog of self-doubt is lifting. The Japanese call this mushin, no mind, a state where you're no longer tangled in overthinking. It's the flow state artists lose themselves in, the presence athletes touch in the zone, the timelessness lovers feel in each other's arms. This is intuition not just as a voice, but as a way of being. You're no longer just hearing the wisdom within, you are it. So how do we begin to live this? Practically, we start small. Tomorrow morning, before reaching for your phone, take a breath. Place your hand on your heart and ask gently, what do I truly need today? The answer might not come as words. It may arrive as a sensation, heaviness when you consider one path, spaciousness when you consider another. Maybe what you call laziness is really a body pleading for rest. Maybe what you label recklessness is your soul begging for courage. This is vipassana. Clear seeing, insight arising not from analysis, but from stillness. Over time you'll start recognizing these subtle cues everywhere in your dreams, in the natural world, even in your obstacles. The great master Padmasambhava once taught that all phenomena are messengers, that flat tire on the way to an important meeting, perhaps the universe intervening, redirecting your course, that missed opportunity. Maybe it's the space clearing before a breakthrough. As you walk this path of trust, you begin to understand the Buddha's most radical teaching. You are your own refuge. No guru, no partner, no accomplishment can offer what you already hold within. The more you root into your own alignment, the more life becomes a sacred unfolding, not free of hardship but free of resistance. You stop waiting for a perfect future and begin resting in the perfection of now. The obstacles don't vanish, but you greet them with a steadiness that cannot be shaken. Because self-trust doesn't promise that everything will be okay someday. It reveals that you are already okay now, here, exactly as you are. And in that realization, you come home, not to a place, but to yourself. There comes a moment on the path of authenticity when you start noticing strange and beautiful occurrences, a phone call from someone you were just thinking about, a book that falls open to the exact page answering your unspoken question, a chance meeting that alters your life's direction. In Buddhist wisdom we understand these aren't mere coincidences, but manifestations of tendril, the Tibetan concept of interdependent connection, similar to what Jung called synchronicity. When you align with your deepest truth, the universe begins whispering back in a language of meaningful accidents. The Buddha taught that nothing exists in isolation. Like a vast net of jewels where each gem reflects all others, our inner state resonates through the web of existence. This is the profound teaching of Pradatyesa Mutpada, dependent origination. That random job posting you stumble upon after finally admitting you want a career change, the old friend who reappears just as you're seeking guidance, these are the universe's way of nodding in agreement with your soul's choices. In Zen they say when the student is ready, the teacher appears. But we might add, when the heart is true, miracles become ordinary. Yet this magical alignment isn't about control, it's about surrender. There's a crucial difference between forcing outcomes and allowing flow. The Taoist Buddhist traditions speak of wu-wei effortless action. Imagine a leaf floating down a river. It doesn't struggle against currents, yet arrives exactly where it needs to be. Similarly, when you release the need to manipulate life and instead trust your authentic path, synchronicities blossom like lotuses in your wake. I remember a monk's story about losing his way in the mountains during a storm. Just as despair set in, a stray dog appeared, leading him to a hidden cave that sheltered him through the night. The dog vanished at dawn. A momentary guide sent by what? Chance? Or the invisible hand of a universe that responds to sincere hearts? But here's the paradox. The Buddha understood well. The more aligned you become, the fiercer the tests may grow. In the Jataka tales, the Buddha-to-be faces his greatest trials just before enlightenment. Your old life will tug at your sleeves like hungry ghosts. Those critical relatives, the friends who mock your changes, the sudden doubts in the midnight hours. These aren't signs you're wrong, but proof you're evolving. The Tibetan tradition calls these dun obstacles that aren't blockages but strengthening exercises for the spirit. When you commit to self-honoring after years of people-pleasing, it's as if the universe asks, are you serious? Through temporary challenges. There's profound teaching in how nature operates. Consider bamboo. After years of underground root growth where nothing seems to happen, it shoots up meters in weeks. your journey may feel similarly long. Periods where your inner work remains invisible, then sudden bursts of external manifestation. Those overnight synchronicities others marvel at were actually years in the making. A Buddhist master once told me, "The universe loves courage but tests it first." When you persist in authenticity despite resistance, you're not just changing your life. You're altering your very relationship with reality. The most beautiful transformation occurs in how you perceive obstacles. Where once you saw a closed door as failure, now you sense it as redirection. A canceled flight becomes divine timing, avoiding disaster. A betrayal reveals its gift in showing who truly belongs in your life. This is upaya, skillful means in action. The alchemical art of turning all experiences, even painful ones, into wisdom. The Japanese practice of kintsugi, repairing broken pottery with gold, mirrors this perfectly. Your cracks become the very places where light enters brightest. As your trust deepens, you begin sensing guidance everywhere, in bird flights, in overheard conversations, in the way certain paths feel magnetically right. This isn't fantasy, but heightened perception. The Thai forest tradition teaches that a purified mind sees connections where others see chaos. That inexplicable urge to take a different route home, avoiding an accident, the dream that warns of a health issue before symptoms appear, these are your Buddha nature whispering through the veil of ordinary reality. Yet the greatest synchronicity isn't external but internal. The moment your seeking mind realizes it was what it sought all along. Like the fish searching the ocean while swimming through it, we chase miracles while being miraculous ourselves. The Tibetan master Longchenpa wrote, "Since everything is but an apparition, perfect in being what it is, having nothing to do with good or bad, acceptance or rejection, you might as well burst out laughing." When you finally stop straining and simply be your authentic self, the whole universe becomes your mirror, reflecting back the divine play of a consciousness waking up to itself. So walk your path with both wonder and resilience. The synchronicities will come. Sometimes subtle as a feather landing at your feet, sometimes loud as thunderclaps of grace. But remember, these aren't rewards for being good, nor punishments when challenges arise. They're simply reminders that you're never alone in this dance. Every authentic choice sends ripples through the web of existence, and the universe always answers in kind. The moment you decide to walk your true path, the ground beneath you begins to shift like sand. It's natural to feel your heart tremble. This is what the Buddha called dukkha, the sacred anxiety that arises whenever we stand at the edge of growth. I remember an old Zen parable about a monkey clinging to a vine over a cliff. Below him yawns safety, above him freedom. But to reach either, he must release one hand. Our souls know this dilemma well. That job, that relationship, that identity we've outgrown. The vines we cling to, not because they still serve us, but because the emptiness of letting go feels more terrifying than the slow suffocation of staying. In the Tibetan tradition, they speak of bardo, the in-between state where one existence has ended, but the next hasn't yet begun. This isn't just about death, it's every transition in our lives, that hollow ache when you've left behind what was familiar but haven't yet arrived at what will be. That's your bardo. The Buddha taught that all suffering comes from attachment, yet we rarely discuss how even our suffering can become something we're attached to. The devil you know feels safer than the angel you've yet to meet. There's profound courage required to stand in this liminal space without scrambling backward. But here's the secret the Dharma reveals. Uncertainty isn't your enemy. It's your alchemical fire. The Japanese practice of kintsukuroi, repairing broken pottery with gold, reminds us that breaks make space for greater beauty. When old structures crumble, whether relationships, careers, or identities, the cracks aren't evidence of failure. They're invitations for light to enter new ways. A Theravada monk once told me, The Buddha didn't find enlightenment by building higher walls around his comfort zone. He sat still in the earthquake of his own becoming. This is where meditation becomes more than practice. It becomes lifeline. When fear arises, and it will, instead of fighting it or fleeing, try what the Burmese masters teach. Breathe into the belly and silently name it. Fear is here. Uncertainty is here. Like uninvited guests at your door, when you acknowledge them without resistance, they often lose their power. The Tibetan practice of Tonglen takes this further. Breathe in the pain of all who feel this fear. Breathe out compassion. Suddenly, your personal struggle becomes part of humanity's collective awakening. You're never truly alone in the dark. Clarity comes not from having all the answers, but from asking better questions. The Buddha's radical teaching of anicca, impermanence, means no situation, no feeling, no identity lasts forever. So when standing at life's crossroads, instead of asking, "What if I fail?" try what the Zen masters do. What is this moment demanding of me, not in 5 years, not according to others' expectations, but right now, in the quiet truth of my heartbeat? Your values aren't found in grand declarations, but in small, consistent choices, the way a river carves canyons, not through force but persistence, and oh, the miracles that begin when you stop betraying yourself. The Buddha spoke of Sangha, the spiritual community that appears like wildflowers after rain when you stop pretending to be who you're not. These soul companions don't come because you've figured everything out. They come because your authentic struggle sings a frequency only fellow travelers can hear. There's a Jataka tale about a parrot who stayed with her burning forest while others fled. When the gods asked why, she replied, "Because this is home." Moved by her loyalty to truth, they extinguished the flames. Your true tribe recognizes you by this same stubborn love for what's real. Resistance will come, not as punishment, but as initiation. The night before his enlightenment, the Buddha faced Mara's entire army: doubt, desire, fear, distraction. Their onslaught wasn't a sign he was wrong, but proof he was dangerously close to right. Your Mara moments might look like former colleagues mocking your new path, family guilting you for changing, or your own mind whispering you're selfish for choosing growth. Meet them as the Buddha did, by touching the earth as witness to your resolve. The ground remembers every step taken in authenticity. There's a secret in how bamboo grows. For years after planting, nothing visible happens while roots spread underground. Then suddenly, explosive growth. Your journey may feel similarly invisible until one day the world sees what was always becoming. The Korean Zen master Seung San called this "don't know mind," the fertile space where true transformation occurs beyond the noise of expectations. What looks like standing still may be your most profound movement. So when fear comes, as it will, breathe. When doubt whispers, as it must, listen but don't obey. And when the urge arises to shrink back to what was familiar, remember the Buddha's radical promise: no one saves us but ourselves. No one can, and no one may. We ourselves must walk the path, not because you're alone in the universe, but because the universe is waiting for you to choose yourself so it can say yes. Every authentic step sends ripples through the web of existence, calling home all that belongs with you. The path won't always feel safe, but it will feel alive. Isn't that the most terrifying and beautiful choice of all, to fully inhabit this fleeting, precious human life? As the poet Rilke wrote, "You must give birth to your images. They are the future waiting for you." Or as the Buddha might say, "The lotus of your truest life grows only in the muddy waters of your courage." There comes a morning when you wake and realize something fundamental has shifted. The anxieties that once coiled around your chest like vines have loosened their grip. Decisions that used to tie your stomach in knots now arise with quiet certainty, like a leaf floating downstream. This isn't indifference, but the deep serenity the Buddha called apaka, equanimity. It doesn't ignore life's storms but knows how to stand steady within them. I remember an old Zen master's words, "First you chase peace like a butterfly, then you realize you're the garden it's been seeking all along." This transformation doesn't mean life stops being messy. Traffic still jams, bills still arrive, people still disappoint. But where you once reacted like a reed shaken by every wind, now there's space between event and response, a sacred pause where choice lives. The Buddha taught this as smrti, mindful awareness, the practice of witnessing without being swept away. That argument with your partner, instead of drowning in it, you notice the heat rising in your chest, the old story about not being heard. And in that noticing, freedom emerges like watching clouds pass across the sky of your being. You're no longer the clouds but the vast space holding them. What's miraculous isn't that problems vanish, but that your relationship to them transforms. The Tibetan tradition speaks of shamatha, calm abiding, where the turbulence of thoughts settles like snowflakes landing on a frozen lake. You begin to recognize all those years of people-pleasing, of squeezing yourself into shapes that never fit, were like carrying a boulder uphill, mistaking the ache for normal. Now, having set it down, ordinary moments, steaming tea and morning light, the weight of a child's hand in yours, becomes suffused with quiet joy. This is Santosha contentment, not because everything's perfect, but because you've stopped waiting for perfection to be present. Your courage becomes contagious, in ways you'll never fully see. There's a Jataka tale about a candle flame that lights another and another until the entire night temple glows. This is the magic of living authentically. Your choices whisper to others that freedom is possible. That coworker who timidly asks how you set boundaries. The friend who confesses they too dream of leaving that toxic relationship. Your journey becomes medicine simply by being visible. The Buddha didn't preach from isolation but within a community, showing that awakening is both profoundly personal and inherently collective. Imagine your life as a river. For years you've carried debris, obligations like waterlogged branches, relationships like silt clouding your clarity. Now picture releasing them, feeling the current quicken. This isn't loss, but homecoming. In the Pali Canon, the Buddha describes enlightenment as the joy of letting go. What if that heaviness you've normalized is actually the weight of all you're meant to release? Not just toxic people, but outdated stories that you're not enough, that love must be earned, that your worth depends on what you produce. The space created becomes sacred ground for what truly matters. That hobby you dismissed as impractical, it blossoms into vocation. Relationships once starved for your attention deepen with quality presence. Even solitude once feared becomes rich with companionship. The Thai forest tradition teaches that when we stop scattering our energy, we discover piti, the rapturous joy of being fully alive in each moment. This path isn't about reaching some distant peak, but learning to walk with grace right where you are. The Zen poet Ryokan embodied this, finding enlightenment in playing with village children as much as in meditation. Your transformation might look ordinary, saying no without apology, resting without guilt, creating without demanding it pay rent. Yet these small acts are revolutionary in a world that profits from your self-abandonment. The miracle isn't in grand gestures, but in the accumulated power of daily authenticity. There's a secret. The Buddhist elders whisper, "The peace you seek has been here all along, beneath the noise of striving, like gold hidden in ordinary-looking rock. Your true nature waits patiently beneath layers of conditioning. Each time you choose yourself, through boundaries, rest, or honoring your creative spark, you're not achieving anything new, but remembering something ancient." The Japanese call this hongaku, original enlightenment, the truth that we're not becoming enlightened, but uncovering what was always there. So when doubts come, as they will, touch the earth as witness. Feel how the ground supports you without question. Notice how trees grow toward light without debating their worthiness.